Hey
Right,
guys.
right from the wrapper.
Yeah, pretty much. I've been up for about an hour. Saw my kid off to school, but I'm pretty tired from yesterday, so I'm just taking it easy today.
Elliotte Friedman joining us here, episode 8, and let's just get right into it. I mean, you've been busy. Is this not the busiest week you've maybe had in your entire professional career with all the news?
I don't know about that, but I would say that first of all, we should be interviewing you because you're the big scoop breaker here. And secondly, you know what the best thing about was yesterday? The best thing about yesterday was it reminded me of life before COVID. Drive down to Buffalo on the Wednesday night. You get up in the morning, the big news breaks, and then you go to someone and meet them face to face and you have a conversation with them face to face. That to me was the best thing about it, that it reminded me of what life was like before all this shit happened. Really.
Interesting you should say that. Riv, you look like you're ready to ask a question, but
No.
I, I guess the first thing I'll ask you, and I'm glad you said that. How did you end up in Buffalo Wednesday? I mean, you sit here and say we should be interviewing you for the scoop, but you obviously knew what was going on.
I didn't know, yes and no. So Eichel had decided he was going to talk on Thursday, whether he was traded or not. I think he just reached a point where he was fed up and he wanted to get his side of the story out there. So we were I went to Buffalo. I waited till rush hour was over in Toronto. I drove to Buffalo on Wednesday night. I set my alarm for 7:30. I probably should have set it for 7:15. I'm not an early riser in general. And, when I woke up, I saw a text it said 3:05 a.m. You better get working because it's going to be Vegas. And, then you're not long after, I got a confirmation you've been traded to Vegas. And it wasn't until after that I realized that you'd already tweeted it out. And it was just, it was a wild, insane day. When I saw Eichel, he had 224 unanswered text messages, and I didn't get that many because not as many people like me. But last night when I got home and got to bed and woke up this morning, I realized, oof, I've got some work to do to return all the messages I got yesterday too.
Who
How
were
was
his text messages?
Jack's?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, how was Jack's demeanor?
He was happy. He was, he's happy. It's like
Took a lot of weight off his shoulders.
yes, like Craig, there's scar tissue there. Like, don't kid yourselves. I don't know if you saw the interview, but I had a few people text me about his one answer about, how do you feel about Buffalo, how they handled this? And he said, I'm not going to answer that, but the question would be a lot different if I wasn't traded this morning. I think he was ready to go. And, I thought it was really interesting. It's very obvious, Craig, that this was a very personal thing between the Pagulas and Eichel. He went out of his way to credit Kevin Adams for not only getting him traded, but also the way that he handled the process. And also, too, you remember, now we know that it's true that Eichel asked for a trade prior to the bubble playoffs. And he still credited Adams for trying to go out and get Taylor Hall and making the team better. So
Yeah.
it's very clear where the issues are here and where the hard feelings are here on both sides.
So the issues you believe, and I think that Jack is hasn't come out and expressed it, but it was with the Pagulas.
Yes. Yeah, there's no question about that.
He also said he requested a trade last year.
No, you know what? It was he requested.
Did I misinterpret that?
He requested the trade. I'll just set the timeline in case anyone's confused. I haven't watched the full interview yet, but he requested the trade, and he said to me, and it's in the written piece that I did with it. He requested a trade after Jason Botterill was fired, and what it was, as he said, was he was under the impression that the team was going to. He said he wouldn't call it a rebuild, but wasn't going to try to necessarily win right away. And he said that he wasn't ready for that. He wanted to win, and he said, look, like, we didn't win. He didn't say it was anyone else's fault we didn't win. He basically said, I'm as much as, like, I was there too. We didn't win together. Yeah. And he just said that at that point in time, he wasn't ready for a rebuild or anything slow. And if they wanted to trade him for picks and prospects, that he was fine with that. So the trade request was in the summer of 2020 as we were doing the bubble playoffs or around that time.
I just listened to that and you know, like I as a hockey player, you need to realize that your playing career is short. It goes, you know, by the snap of finger. It feels like you work your whole young life and young adult life to get to the final destination, which is to play in the NHL someday. And you know, to be on a team that just has not been able to figure out managerial wise how to make the team stronger, and you have this elite player that wants to play in the playoffs, he wants to win games, and at what point is the breaking point?
We reached it, you know, and you guys can answer that better than I can because you guys played, right? So Eichel, like, how many years was that? It was 5 years before. Yeah, 60. Well, no, but when he asked for the trade, 16, 17, 8, 5 years. Is that like, you guys tell me, if you've been losing for 5 years and haven't made the playoffs for 5 years, is it okay for you to do that? Now, recognizing that he's the captain and he's the star player, and he didn't blame anyone else. Like, he didn't say it was this person's fault, we didn't win. He lumped himself in there with everybody else. Is it acceptable as former players for him to say after 5 years, maybe it's my time?
Again, Elliotte, I mean, I love that you know, passed that along to us, but even I can't even speak to that because after 5 years of being on a losing team, I'm a guy that's just happy to still be in the league. Right. So a guy like Craig might be better suited to answer that because I can't answer that from that. I can understand. I can appreciate where he's coming from though. Like, how can we?
Yeah,
not?
but I think he's not talking about you know, being in an environment where you could be out of the league the next year. It's about, how about being on a team where the environment that has been built has not been positive, that you're losing games each and every night. You're one of the worst teams in the league every single year. And it's not just on Jack. It's not just on Sam Reinhart. It's not on those players that were drafted high previous years. It's about the management putting the right players on the ice to continue to move the needle forward. And I just don't think that the Sabres, they did too many patchworks, Band-Aids. You can call it what you want, but at some point, I think as a player like Jack, you just get to a breaking point, and Jack's breaking point was 5 years.
Elliotte, could all the poison have been avoided? Was all of this negativity and negative press avoidable for both sides?
Yes, I do think that.
How far back do we have to go for somebody to maybe, instead of turn left, turn right to fix it?
You know, the tough thing about that is that a lot of the problems in Buffalo pre-exist Jack Eichel getting drafted there, right?
Yeah.
You know, so like this, like, it's almost like this is a big issue, and it's been a big issue, and it's got a lot of attention, but it existed before Eichel was there. I mean, look, like, you know what I was thinking about yesterday was, you know, 2 years ago, before COVID hit, every week I'd come on your show and you guys would be like, is Jack Eichel on your hard ballot? Is Jack Eichel on your hard ballot? And, you know, I've always believed that, you know, when he was drafted by the Sabres, you've got a great hockey market, which Buffalo is. Like, blue collar US city, right? Great hockey market. Owners who really believe in USA hockey, and a pillar of his generation of American hockey players. It should have worked. It was set up beautiful.
Where did it go wrong, in your opinion? You've watched you know, what's happened over the last 5 years here in Buffalo. Massive hockey market. I mean, when this place is humming, there's not too many better markets in the whole league. Where did it go wrong?
I think Eichel said it right. They didn't win. And you have to take a certain amount of blame for that when you're the captain and you're the best player. So, like, I know I don't check my mentions a lot, but I watched the reaction yesterday to the interview and some of the news, and there are certainly Sabres fans who say that Eichel, we talked about it at times, his demeanor on the ice, especially when he was young. It's not the kind of stuff that, it's the kind of stuff you got to grow out of. And I mean, you guys can tell me, but people thought he did. And then he had that great year where, you guys were asking me every week, is he a Hart Trophy candidate? And then it all fell apart. And
let's not get the hockey player confused with the person, though, because he
yeah,
was a Hart ballot on the ice, and off the ice, he was the exact opposite.
what do you mean?
There's far too many people. And listen, maybe I'm just kind
I
of
see what you're
those
saying.
things that those things that you throw the little ball at and it sticks to you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was me. And there's a lot of people in this city that I know inside the organization, and the way that Jack presented himself and the way that he, as let's put aside the captain thing.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's just put aside, let's talk about the person and
Yeah.
the way that he treated people around the rink, in the dressing room, around the city, was not a positive thing.
Well, that's not good. I mean, I don't like to hear that, because I'm a person who tries.
I don't
to
like
treat
saying
people
it,
right.
but it is what it is. If we're going to sit here and talk about a Hart ballot trophy player on the ice, I have said for the last number of months, Elliotte, that Jack Eichel, without question, is one of the top players in the world. Vegas is getting, without question, the best player and has the most upside to do what he's going to do on another team. But it's interesting when you're going through this situation with Jack, and the team doesn't want Jack anywhere near the dressing room. Even though he was injured, they don't want him anywhere near it.
Yeah, it was interesting, Elliotte. He did an interview with Spit and Chicklets, and he said, people don't know this, but I told the Sabres that if they let me have the neck surgery, I'd come back and play. And all I thought to myself was, well, this just speaks to how badly the Sabres did not want you around anymore.
Yeah, that is true. He told me that off camera, and just in everything else we did in the interview, it just, that's my fault for not getting him to restate it. But he did say that to me too, and I do believe that was an option. I'd come back and play to drive up my value. Once you strip the captaincy of someone, it's very hard to go back. And Craig, like everything you say there, like I don't like to hear that stuff. I mean, look. It's very clear that there's a lot of things that has to be fixed in Buffalo. This is bigger than, one person. Like we said, this started before Eichel got there, and it continued. It continued while he was here, but the one thing I look at for the Sabres is through this. I think Kevin Adams has a plan. It looks like you're going to build the team around some of your young guys like Cousins. I mean, Cousins looks like a real, Cousins was at the League and Players Association media tour, and I was so impressed. The way he carried himself. This is a guy who last year in those exit interviews, which were depressing as hell if you were a Sabre fan, he stepped up and said, "I'm happy to be here and I want to be here." Do you know how badly the Sabres needed to hear that, and their fans needed to hear that?
Yeah.
And I think what now, the difference now is the problem is you've had young players like Eichel who've talked about this before and it hasn't worked. The difference I think now is, Adams is building a team around him, in terms of Jason Karmanos, Sam Ventura. And, the way Adams carried himself through this, look, regardless of what you think about the trade itself, he had a process and he stuck to it. And there was a lot of heat. If you think this is playing out between the Pagulas and Eichel in private, who do you think is bearing the brunt of that? It's Adams every day.
Yep.
And like to me, that was like what that like, when I watch Adams through this, I say he's got a chance because he strikes me as a guy who's smart enough to say, I know what I don't know, and I'm going to surround myself to fix that.
So let's talk a
He's
little
not
bit more.
making decisions by himself.
No,
Kevin Adams, one of his strengths is he's a very strong man, very classy guy. He knows the game of hockey. He's won a Stanley Cup before. He's been with incredible teammates that are now, general managers and coaches in this league.
Mm-hmm.
But Kevin is not a know-it-all. He is there to listen to others and gather information and different opinions, and then try to find the best solution.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, it was interesting. I saw Kevin at the rink last night. Our young guys play hockey in the same organization. And he was in one of the coaches' room, him and another coach. And I walked in and just stuck my head in, and Kevin was there. And I looked at him with a big smile on my face. I said, good for you. Congratulations. I'm sure I can't even begin to imagine how tired and stressed you've been for so many months with this. And he looked at me and he was like, I just want to go home and put my feet up. It's been a long, tough road, and I'm happy that it's behind us, and the future's ahead of us. And I was just like, good for you.
You know what, Craig? Like that's what an executive said to me yesterday. He said to me, regardless of what you think of the trade, the win for Buffalo is that it's over.
Yeah.
The money is off their books. They like they said, like he's traded Reinhart, he's traded Ristolainen, he's traded Eichel. It's now that's over. Regardless of what you think about it, it's over. And he said that is the best thing that could happen to Adams and the Sabres.
And the cupboard has been stocked.
Yeah.
And, the Jack Quinn, who was drafted, what was he, 8th overall, Petey, 2 years ago. He's now the second leading scorer in the American Hockey League and was Rookie of the Month. And J.J. Peterka, who they traded up for, is an outstanding hockey player and is playing extremely well. You bring in Peyton Krebs, you bring in, we talked about Dylan Cousins, and you talk about, players that aren't even here right now. The Devin Levi that was traded in the Sam Reinhart trade, playing D1 hockey.
He's killing it, by the way.
And he's playing unbelievable. And then you still have Owen Power, who's just marinating in Michigan right now and getting better. This team has done a great job. And here's the thing. We still have Florida's first round draft pick in 22. We still have Vegas's in 22, possibly conditional. But we have, multiple first round draft picks. This is starting over. This is the start over date. The fans here that have struggled with the identity and where this team has gone for a number of years are now actually looking at this saying, you know what? I see the light. I see the light here in Buffalo. And I know it's going to take a little bit of time. And we've heard that for years and years and years, but they see the light now. And now it's patience and enjoyment of watching these young players that aren't in the league. I found it amazing that we trade for Peyton Krebs, and they're sending him to the minors.
I think that's smart.
Everybody thinks it's smart, but the old regime probably would have had him playing
top line center.
Exactly. Give him everything. Give him everything. No. You go earn it.
Show everybody that the deal worked because he's a top line center right away. Get him in there, rush him in, and show them that we got a player that we can insert right away. Elliotte, we know you're jam packed for time too, and there's a lot of questions I want to.
Well, let's go. Let's take some time.
Well, here's a question I want to ask you and some clarification on.
Yeah.
Calgary. Was there ever really a deal there with Calgary? Maybe not to the extent that was reported, as Kevin Adams said yesterday, but was there a deal? Was there a deal with Calgary of some sort?
I think Calgary was in it all the way. but I never got the sense it was close. And I think that one of the issues, I think Calgary was willing to deal some of their top prospects. I think they were willing to deal picks or picks. I think that Buffalo wanted one of Kachuk or Mangiapane to be in the deal, and Calgary just wasn't doing that.
Okay.
That's what I think. But I think, honestly, Andrew, and everybody I've spoken to says in the last week, it was Vegas.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Anybody else kicking tires?
Carolina.
Yeah. So I heard that, and so when did that come into play? And who?
Late. It was
Any idea of maybe what was being tossed around?
I heard Buffalo was interested in Seth Jarvis. That was the guy they really liked.
Okay.
Now, I thought, and I don't know if you saw, but Eichel said yesterday there was a time he thought he was going to Minnesota, and there was a time he thought he might be going to Colorado.
Wow. What's the word out of Vegas with the trade?
They're thrilled.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously,
in your
they
opinion,
made the deal.
who's gonna, and it's hard to say because only time will tell throughout this trade. It's got to play itself over many years. But with just looking at this trade right now, what are your thoughts?
Well, look, Eichel's the best player, right?
Yep.
And I think generally the person who gets the best player. I just have to send a quick note here.
Oh yeah, who are you sending it to? Come on.
I think generally Craig is. I think generally Craig that if you get the best player, the chances are you're going to win the trade. And Eichel, and now we learn about the surgery and how it's going to go and everything. But you're getting a 25-year-old number one center who's signed for 5 years, right?
When's the surgery?
5-year-old, 6'4", 220-pound right winger that can skate as fast as Jack Eichel, can shoot the puck. He's physical.
Tuch is a great player.
I'm going to tell you this. Pat myself on the back. Watch
yesterday.
this. I'm going to tell you this. I think he is an absolute stud.
I agree.
And you know what, Petey, tell him right now.
Well, I've been telling Craig for 4 years that they should be trading for Tuch.
No way. I'm taking that. Alex Tuch should have been a Buffalo Sabres 3-4 years ago. I absolutely love this player. I think he hasn't even tapped his potential yet. I think that you're bringing in a player that absolutely wants to be here. I mean, he got traded from Vegas, one of the top teams in the National Hockey League. And you would think that in a trade like this, that the people that are coming to Buffalo that are, their heads down, they're like, oh man, here we go, going to a last place team, this, that, and the other. Not this guy. Petey, tell him. You had a talk with him, didn't you?
So Alex Tuch calls me, and he says, he's laughing. He's like, how did you hear about this? And I just said, look, I said, I can't tell you that. I'm not going to tell you that. But
yeah, good.
But I said, listen, I said, how are you feeling about it? And he said, he literally said, listen, he said, I'm going to be dead honest with you. He said, I love Vegas. I loved it here. He said, but I'm going to be a Buffalo Sabre. He said, I can't believe it. He said, any other team. He said, if I were traded to any other team, I could not have been happier with where I'm going. Now, tell me a player that has ever said that about being traded to Buffalo in the last 10 years.
So, Andrew, I'm glad you brought that up because another GM told me last night, he heard me say that once Krebs was in the deal, it was going to be Vegas. And he called me while I was driving home from Buffalo, and he said, there's something else here that you should talk about. And it's going to be here, and it's in my podcast. It's coming out today with Jeff. Tuch was just as important to Buffalo. And he thinks that's why the deal was Vegas, because Adams wanted to send that message. And if you heard his media conference yesterday, which I know both of you did, what did he say? We have a guy who wants to be here. I think that was very, very important.
I think when you look at this and you look at what Kevin Adams is trying to do here, and you talked about, I like a lot of the things that have been done and this and that, the subtraction and the additions. Everybody that is putting on the jersey wants to be in Buffalo. They want to wear the Sabres jersey. I think it's the most important thing that you can do to build a team, build an environment. And I think it's extremely important. I talked to a friend that knows Kyle Poso very well. I know Kyle. And they were on the road, and Kyle's like, wow, this team is awesome. This is a good group of guys. I had sent a message out just the other day, to ask if the guys wanted to go to a Lakers game. And normally when you send something like that out, and it happens every year, a veteran guy would send something out. Hey, who wants to go here? And what happens? How many guys would go, Petey? Maybe
6.
5 or 6. Exactly. 5 or 6 guys. 20 guys went to the game.
It means they all want to be around each other.
They all want to be around each other. They're all excited and they all want to be with each other. And this is so important.
Well, let's remember, Tuch's not coming to an area where he doesn't know anybody. I think he knows Bjork from the NTDP. He knows Miller from Vegas. He played for Granado. Elliotte, I'll make a bold prediction right now, and I think Alex Tuch could be completely wrong because you have some other good young players that are developing into some good character players, but I think Tuch will be the next captain of the Sabres. Not this year, but probably next year. I could
see that.
I mean, do you know how many people he had when Vegas came to Buffalo for the first time and Alex Tuch played his first NHL game in Buffalo? You know how many people were there? They had, I don't know, 300 people. And he had a party afterward that he couldn't even be at, that he had for everybody to come and socialize because he had to get on the plane and leave. All of his family, all of his friends, like 200-300 people from Syracuse were at Pearl Street Pub right across from the rink there. So, I mean,
you know what? That's a great story. It's a great story. And you need those stories right now. You really do.
Yeah. No, it's true.
I think this is we talk about, Peyton Krebs is going to be, a very exciting, young, dynamic prospect to watch and see how he develops moving forward. The first round draft pick is going to be, they're all crapshoots, right? But there's that ability to pick someone special that can help this team moving forward. But I'm going to tell you right now, to me, and believe me, I think Peyton Krebs is absolutely a massive get. He's the number 1 prospect for the Vegas Golden Knights. He's a centerman. He is insanely talented. But I'm going to tell you this, Alex Tuch, to me, was a major, major get. A Western New York kid, a top-line right winger.
I agree with that.
I think that he has endless possibilities. You're adding someone who wants to be here. You're adding a veteran player that's been in the league for 3, 4, 5 years. And that is extremely important. Alex Tuch right now is at that ripe age of 25. He's still young. He has got a lot of years to continue to grow with this hockey team.
Elliotte, I almost went after your boy Kipper yesterday. I was on with him and Bourne, and he said Tuch's a second, third liner at best, but they had Andrew Chuck coming up, so I didn't want to rob all their airtime arguing with him.
What did he just say?
Yeah, I know. You can text him. You can text him about that. Elliotte can get you on his show and go argue with him. But you know what, Elliotte? I think we've really had a long talk here about the Sabres trade, and that's kind of been brewing for months. But did you need a COVID test to get across the border? How was it? Did they give you the gears? Did you tell them you were coming to interview Eichel?
So I'll tell you. So when I was driving to the U.S., I did not need a COVID test to go into the States. I'm double vaccinated, but I didn't need a COVID test. But they, the person at the border kind of misunderstood what I meant to say. So they made me go into the room And they thought I was going for a job interview. And I was like, no, I'm going to do an interview. And they go, who are you here to interview? And I go, Jack Eichel. And they immediately perked up. Like they were interested. So this is Wednesday night before the trade was announced. Like, where's he going? So I think he's going to Vegas. They were asking me questions. They were great. And then on the way home, like after I did the interview and filed the written story and stuff, basically my wife and one of my coworkers said, you are not allowed to go back until you go to Trader Joe's. Like, don't come back unless you've gone to Trader Joe's. So I spent an hour and a half at Trader Joe's getting stuff for everything. And I'm coming back across the border, and the border guard was hilarious. He's like, you were here for the Eichel trade? I go, yeah. He goes, did you buy anything? And I go, look, I'm not going to lie to you. And I was a little bit worried because, like you're supposed to go for business, right? So I'm like, okay.
How many packs of smokes did you have, Elliotte?
I didn't. I go, I better not lie, because if he asks me to open the trunk and he sees 2 bags of Trader Joe's there, I'm in real trouble. So I said, I went to Trader Joe's, but it's under the daily limit. I didn't go over the limit. And he goes, picking up some stuff you can't get in Canada. And I go, yeah, it was really fun.
Well, we appreciate your time today on short notice. We know you've been crazy busy. Busy, and
big scoop of the year, Andrew. Scoop of the year.
And I told you last night on the phone when you called.
Don't even go there.
Why is that embarrassing to hear?
I just think no. It's like, you got it. Like, take the credit. You got it.
Yeah, but what you don't know, Elliotte, is that, and Craig can attest to this, and he's going to be a full blown.
I think he's been gloating. He's been gloating for literally 2 days. I can't get the smile off his face. Every time he always trumps me and says, "Ribs, I broke the biggest."
No, oh my God, Elliotte.
And that's what he starts with, and then I just sit back and like, here we go.
Elliotte, I will say this, okay, and I'll end with this. My father called me last night. He is our biggest fan. He and my mom. Okay, they love Craig. They love Craig. That's the thing. They're like, Andrew, you don't shut up. Craig is phenomenal. He's the entertainer, right? So my dad calls me right away last night because I said, go listen to the show today. And my dad, and I even tweeted out, I said I was very, very cocky in today's episode. And my dad calls me and he goes, "Man, you sounded like an arrogant prick." And I said, "Thanks, Dad. That was the whole point. Love you." And we love you, Elliotte. Thanks for the time, man. Fantastic as always.
Thank you, Elliotte.
We appreciate the last second.
Pleasure, guys.
As we know you're the man.
Yes.
Thank you. That's a wrap on another episode of After the Whistle. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, After the Whistle, and at Craig Rivet 52, at the Instigator 76. And you can find us, as you already know, on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, and anywhere else where you can get your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to spread the word.